scanners were at the right event to scan the right tickets and for certain tickets.
And I'm sure, while you're busy doing all the scanning, you look up and there's just these people huddled around this table just eating this one thing. and all like going crazy about it. And you're like, what the fuck is that? That's probably that was your first foray into the restaurants, no?
Yeah, I mean, and I would go to I got to work with the chefs getting set up. Of course, everyone's hustling, getting set up to
super
serve
short.
Thousands
I need
of
this,
people.
I need that.
No, actually, I never had a bad experience.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. Yeah, I was always kind of afraid of them, so maybe I was also super in and out, so I never put myself in the position to be snapped at.
Well, usually in food and wine too, it's a very festive thing. So they, I know any chef that goes to those kinds of things is kind of like, I'm gonna chill. We're gonna make food, but we're gonna hang
have
out.
A great time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so then I would get to, of course, go to the after parties, and so I would see these chefs working their asses off, hustling to feed thousands of people, and then we'd all go to this rooftop after party, having a good time, and I'm like, this is exactly what I want, this work hard, play hard mentality.
Yeah,
that's my dad. He works his ass off, but every weekend we're off doing something fun, and we're playing with toys, whatever it is, we're doing it, and that's what I've always looked for, is the work and the reward, to feel that gratification.
I mean, it's quick, and you give somebody something to eat, and they eat it, and they're like, oh my God, that's something, and then you're like, well, I did good.
I feel like y'all are, what I've also seen is you guys are probably one of the most selfless jobs. You guys are working behind doors. You think about the time it takes to think about a dish, put it together, execute it, test it out, then make it for someone, and you're doing it for everyone, right? Whether someone's coming out to celebrate something, a big milestone, whether someone's had a shitty day and they just need to treat themselves, and everyone needs to eat, everyone needs that nourishment, and chefs are the ones who are providing that. And then it's gone in maybe 10 minutes. So you think about the timeline that it takes, and I've always admired that. I think there's so much to be said for that, and that's why I want to work with chefs, because they're awesome. Some are really scary, and some aren't always that nice, but they've got a lot. The hours are long and working their asses off, and I see part of that, again, what my dad does is absolutely different from being a chef and working in a kitchen. But I see him working so hard. I just appreciate that so much. I value it in anyone.
And then how long did you stay with the food and wine thing?
So I was there all summer, and then I knew I wanted to live in a big city. And I knew that if I went back to Texas, or all of my friends were in Dallas, and that I would I would probably stay there forever, know? So my sister, again, I just do follow my sisters around, and my sister did the same thing with my aunt in Carmel, but working in finance. So Saskia did that, and when she was there, she would come to San Francisco all the time.
Gotcha.
And she was like, San Francisco is the best city in the world, I want to live there one day, it's absolutely amazing. And I had never been, and so I called her one day, and she was working at a CPA firm in Fort Worth, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to come back. I'm going to try to get a job here. Do you want to move with me to San Francisco?
And this was the first time that you sort of were taking the chance.
Yeah.
And she was like, hell yeah,
definitely
baby.
Definitely planted the seed. Yeah. I had still never been here. And I said, do you want to move to San Francisco with me? She quit her job, and we found a place to live. And
what year was this?
2012.
What was your rent like?
It was $4,000 a month.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
for a 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
Yo,
finding an apartment.
You're crazy.
And we had two Bernese Mountain Dogs too.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Extra expenses on top.
Yeah, and so I obviously wasn't paying rent all that whole summer, and so I had been saving my money for whatever was going to be coming my way.
Yeah.
And then. I thought I was going to go back into medical stuff too, maybe sell medical devices, and things like that. But I someone said I needed more sales experience. And so I applied for a job with ADP Payroll Services, like a sales job.
Yeah.
And at the end of the interview, they told me they thought I was too nice and wouldn't take rejection well.
And you're like, you're right.
Yeah, you're right there. Okay, so like we'll start you as an intern.
Yeah.
And so then I took that internship, and it was going from moving real quick for coastal luxury management. I just needed a job out here, and the days would. I mean, I would leave like on the minute at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's very sad. Anyone who has to work in a job that's constantly looking at the clock and just waiting to leave.
Like the longest days of my life. And so I knew that wasn't for me. And so then I went back to Coastal Luxury Management. I said, is there anyone in San Francisco you can hook me up with? I think I'm meant to be in hospitality. Anyone you can hook me up with. And that's when they hooked me up with my first job in Caviar.
Okay. And then what company was that for?
For California Caviar Company.
Okay. And they're still around, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay, got you. Becoming the competitor, huh?
Yes, we have.
We'll get on into all that. So, your first job in Caviar, what are you doing?
Everything. Like it was pretty small, and so I was kind of her assistant.
Yeah.
I would do everything from buy her Spanx to babysit her kid.
Really?
You know, everything.
Whoa.
At all hours of the day.
And then sort of, I guess I'm not really sure how a Caviar company actually works, right? Because I've only been on the receiving end. So I get a tin and I'm like, oh yeah, right? But somebody obviously put that into that tin, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody, basically, how do you get the caviar? How does it come to you?
So it comes in like OTs, like those big blue tins.
The big blue tins, okay.
Yeah.
So in nothing bigger than that? Because I pictured like a suitcase full of like caviar.
So
you know?
black caviar from sturgeon only comes in those big blue tins. It's 3.3 pounds.
Okay.
And then some stuff like trout roe, whitefish roe, those come in big plastic tubs.
Okay.
Probably like 5 to 10 pound tubs.
Heard.
Because that stuff you can freeze and defrost too. But black caviar
and they'll
never
stay
be
the
frozen.
same.
Yeah, yeah. Especially like whitefish roe and tobiko. If you ever see tobiko, can go through anything. Like it's frozen, unfrozen, dyed, flavored, and all that stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty resilient.
Huh. Okay. So as you start garnering more knowledge in caviar, how long did you stay at the California Caviar?
I think I was there for just over 2 years.
Just over 2 years.
Yeah.
Did you move up at all, or were you sort of in that same role of I do everything, I help with everything?
I essentially moved up to where I took on more responsibility, but I never ever got a raise. I never, I definitely had a lot of responsibility over there, and got involved in all aspects of what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did you have a team under you?
No.
It was just you and the.
I was with a team. We had one saleswoman, and then like a few other people that were helping, an accountant that would help with the back end of stuff and payroll. And
were you packaging the caviar yourself?
No, at the time she was using a co-packer.
Okay.
Plaza.
So did you
Pacific
guys?
Plaza was packing her caviar.
Did you guys have the caviar even in house?
Not at the time.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And then towards the end of it, she built a packing room downstairs, and then she was bringing in the caviar and repacking it into smaller containers.
Okay. Awesome. And so caviar, where the hell do you buy it bulk?
Straight from farms.
Straight from farms.
Yeah. Straight.
And there's a lot of, and I just sort of know this because it's like kind of a unsaid thing that everybody knows. There's probably corruption in the caviar business, no?
Yeah. I mean,
So, what is the corruption of the caviar business?
The big thing is mislabeling. We'll have chef meetings with chefs, and they're like, why is your pricing so much, why is your pricing higher than what I'm getting here from someone across the bay from you? And they'll open it up, and they'll be selling like, they think they're getting white sturgeon. You open it up, and it's so clearly hackleback. It's pretty amazing how often we see that happening. So, which is a lower price product. Like, it's a lot cheaper product.
Yeah.
And now going around, there's another person in Northern California selling Kaluga hybrid as California product.
Really?
And it's pretty blatant, and it's illegal for
You're saying
starters.
this is going on today?
Yeah, I can show you on Instagram probably a post right now. Yeah.
Wow, we're not going to call anybody out by name, but we know what you're doing.
No, and we've gone to seen some of our and the thing to me is like, you know what? Honestly, you don't have to work with us. I think competition is great. I think it should keep all of us on our toes.
Yeah, keeps you hungry.
And keeps our product quality high and our prices competitive. Like, I think competition is great, but do not mislead. Don't mislead your consumers, don't mislead your chefs, and don't hurt our industry, because that's bullshit. Like, that's something that really upsets me, because we work so hard even to say specifically store your caviar at this range. And you should never, it's bullshit for people just to slap a sticker on a tin and say, this is caviar. Well, what is it? What is the species? Because they're all different. And that's what Saskia and I set out to do. That's why we started our business, to educate people on there's so many different varieties of caviar. Like, when we were starting our business, people would be like, oh, I love caviar. And we, of course, want to talk about it. Like, what's your favorite? You know, what kind do you like?
No, like, just caviar.
Exactly. Yeah. And people need to realize, like, there's different value. Just because there's different value doesn't make one better than the other. Like, some people love our least expensive product. That's their favorite, and that's great. And some people love the really expensive stuff, like the Ocetras. And find out what you like, and just have full disclosure, so that people know what they're getting and where the value is, because they're all different. Mm-hmm. And it's like, sometimes we'll see something like a Siberian Ocetra. Mm-hmm. That sounds legit, right? Siberian Ocetra? Yeah. There's no such thing.
Doesn't exist.
No, it's either Siberian sturgeon or it's Ocetra. Huh. That's like calling, a Labrador a boxer.
Toyota Chevy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's no such thing. But people tack Ocetra on to the label because everyone knows of Ocetra. Yeah. That's like one of the Caspian caviars, right? So they'll be like California Ocetra or Siberian Ocetra, and they'll charge you more for it. Whoa. When it's really not as valuable as an Ocetra.
The end of the 2 years at this California company, did you know all of what you just told me? Or were you sort of like starting to kind of see? I will say California Caviar is great at their labeling, and she also cares a lot about labeling, and I appreciate that in what she's doing. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen her mispack product or anything like that, and I appreciate that. But what I see from other companies in the Bay Area, it's pretty upsetting, because also it's hard to be like, because we know what we know, right? But chefs sometimes don't have, like, you guys have to work with so much ingredients. Yeah, exactly.
You're focused on...
We want you to know everything about it.
Yeah, so if I were to sit here and tell you, this is our Russian Ocetra, but I'm actually giving you Hackleback and it's a hell of a price, then you're like, oh, that's great, I'll take this Ocetra for that price. Yeah. Like, it tastes good. It's up to us to provide you with correct information, because you're using us as a resource.
Understood.
Yeah.
So... after the California Caviar Company, where do you go from there?
So I left there. I met my now husband when he was here for the America's Cup. He was on Team New Zealand.
Whoa.
And things were not great at California Caviar. It was a bit of a toxic work environment, and it was just time to leave. And so he's like, you know what, quit your job and come travel around the world with me. I am doing this after the America's Cup. I'm doing this Volvo Ocean race that literally goes around the world, and he was the sailmaker for that, so he was like ground crew,
Yeah.
And so whenever the boat was racing from like Spain to Cape Town, he basically had 2 to 3 weeks paid vacation, and we would stop at other places along the way. We just had to be in Cape Town at a certain spot. So I left my job, and the day that I marked on my LinkedIn that I was no longer with California Caviar, Sterling Caviar reached out to me, and they said, hey, we see you're not at California Caviar anymore. What are you doing? Can I meet with you?
Yeah.
And that next morning, I woke up early, and that like we were messaging over LinkedIn until like 10 o'clock that night. That next day, I went out to Sacramento and I met with Sterling Caviar, and I told my boss, Xiao Qing at the time,